The history of West Virginia is written not in ink, but in carbon. It is a history etched into the lungs of men and the hearts of women who learned long ago that the earth does not give up its treasures willingly. In McDowell County, the mountains are not just scenery. They are the ancient sleeping gods that dictate the rhythm of life. They rise like green-backed whales from the morning mist, beautiful and imposing, hiding a labyrinth of tunnels that honeycomb the earth beneath the roots of the hemlocks and the oaks. This story belongs to that earth. It belongs to the deep, silent places where the sun has never touched, and to the men who venture there to steal the fire that powers the world. Elias Thorne was a man carved from that same bedrock. At 55 years old, he was a testament to the endurance of the human frame. Endurance has a price. The alarm clock on his nightstand didn't buzz. It clicked, a sharp mechanical sound at 3:30 in the morning that signaled the start of another battle. Elias didn't wake up. He surfaced. Sleep for him was a shallow, fitful thing. It's interrupted by the phantom vibrations of machinery and the dull, grinding ache in his lower back. He lay there for a moment in the darkness of the master bedroom, listening to the rhythmic breathing of his wife, Martha. The room smelled of lavender laundry detergent and the faint, pervasive scent of coal dust that no amount of washing could ever fully exorcise from the house. It was in the carpets, in the curtains, in the very pores of the drywall. He rolled out of bed, his knees popping with a sound like dry twigs snapping. Every movement was a negotiation with gravity. He walked to the bathroom, the floorboards cold against his calloused feet. In the harsh fluorescent light of the vanity mirror, he looked at the man staring back. The lines around his eyes were deep fissures, filled with the permanent tattoo of the mines. His skin was pale where the shirt covered it, and leathery where the sun and the wind hit it on the rare days he saw them. But it was the cough that defined him. It started low in the chest, a rattle that felt like marbles rolling on a steel plate. He leaned over the sink, gripping the porcelain until his knuckles turned white and hacked. It was a violent, retching sound that he tried to stifle for Martha's sake. When he pulled his hand away from his mouth, he checked the sink. Clear, thank God, no blood today. It's just the gray phlegm of the black lung. The miner's asthma that the company doctors liked to pretend was just allergies or smoking, even though Elias hadn't touched a cigarette since 1998. The kitchen was his sanctuary in these early hours. He moved through the routine with the muscle memory of 30 years. Coffee, black, strong enough to strip paint. 2 eggs, fried in bacon grease. Toast burnt slightly, just the way he liked it. He sat at the small, circular formica table that had been there since Sarah was a baby. Sarah, the thought of her brought a warmth to his chest that the coffee couldn't match. She was in Morgantown, sleeping in a dorm room he was paying for, dreaming dreams that had nothing to do with pickaxes or shuttle cars. She was going to be a teacher. She was going to have clean hands. Elias opened the ledger that sat next to the napkin holder. It was a simple spiral notebook, but it held the weight of his world. The numbers were written in his jagged, heavy scrawl. Mortgage, car payment, Sarah's tuition. The credit card bill from when the furnace died last winter. The math was tight. It was always tight. The coal boom was over. The days of overtime and fat bonuses were ghosts of the past. Now it was about survival. It was about scratching out enough tonnage to keep the lights on and keep Sarah in books. He closed the ledger. He couldn't look at it before a shift. It made his hands shake, and shaking hands got you killed underground. He dressed in the mudroom. The uniform of the miner is a suit of armor made of denim and canvas. The metatarsal boots, heavy and reinforced with steel, laced up tight to support ankles that would be walking on uneven rock for 10 hours. The reflective stripes on his pants and jacket, the wide leather belt that held his battery pack and his self-rescuer, the small metal canister that promised an hour of breathable air if the world ended. He grabbed his lunch pail, a battered silver tin that contained a ham sandwich, an apple, and a thermos of water. He stepped out onto the porch. The air outside was thick and heavy, the humidity of the Appalachian summer already building even before the sun had crested the ridge. The crickets were silent, waiting for the dawn. Elias walked to his truck, a 2004 Ford F-150 that had more rust than paint on the wheel wells. He turned the key, and the engine coughed to life, mirroring its owner. The drive to the Black Bear mine took 45 minutes. It was a drive through a graveyard of industry. He passed the skeletons of old tipples, the rusted husks of conveyors that once roared with the sound of falling rock. He passed the company towns, the rows of identical houses that were now peeling and sagging, some boarded up, ate up, others with tricycles in the yard, a testament to the stubborn resilience of the people who refused to leave. This was coal country. It was a place of fierce pride and deep sorrow, where the flag flew on every porch and the pill mills did a brisk business in the strip malls. Elias loved it, and he hated it. It was the only home he had ever known. When he arrived at the mine site, the transition was immediate. The quiet of the morning was replaced by the industrial hum of the ventilation fans. There were massive turbines, 20 feet across, screaming constantly as they sucked the stale air and explosive methane out of the earth and pumped fresh air down. The bathhouse was a locker room that smelled of sweat, damp wool, and Gojo soap. The mood was subdued. Second shift was coming up, exhausted, their faces black masks with white circles around the eyes where their goggles had been. Third shift, Elise's crew was gearing up. "Morning, Deacon," a voice called out. It was Billy. They called Elias Deacon because he never swore, and he read his Bible on his lunch break. Billy was 22, a kid with a lopsided grin and a baby on the way. He was green. He still had the bounce in his step that the mountain hadn't crushed out of him yet. "Morning, Billy," Elias said, hanging his street clothes in the basket and hoisting it up to the ceiling on the chain. "How's the little woman?" "She's big, Deacon, ready to pop. Doctor says any day now. That's why I'm picking up these extra shifts. Need the diapers." Elias smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. He remembered that feeling, the desperation to provide. "The way it made you take risks you shouldn't take. You stay close to me today, son." "I heard the roof in Section 4 has been talking." "Talking?" Billy laughed, cinching his belt. "Let it talk, as long as it don't scream." The talking was minor slang for the sounds the earth made when the pressure became too great. Groans, pops, snaps. The mountain was alive, and it resented the intrusion. They moved to the lamp room, grabbing their headlamps and clipping them onto their hard hats. The ritual was sacred. Check the light, check the battery, check the gas detector, then the cage. The elevator that dropped them into the abyss. The descent was not fast, but it was absolute. As the sunlight faded to a small square above them and then vanished entirely, the darkness took over. It was a darkness so complete, so heavy, that it felt like a liquid. The only reality was the beam of the cap lamps, cutting through the gloom, illuminating the wet, glistening rock of the shaft walls. The air temperature stabilized at a constant 55 degrees, the temperature of the grave. They stepped out at the bottom, 600 feet below the surface of West Virginia. The air here tasted different. It tasted of ancient dust, of crushed rock, of diesel fumes and copper. "All right, boys, let's get it." The foreman, a gruff man named Holloway, barked. "We're behind on tonnage. The continuous miner is down in 3, so we need to push hard in 4. Elias, you're on the bolter. Billy, you're running the shuttle car. Let's move." They boarded the Mantrip, a low-slung electric trolley that shuttled them 2 miles back into the working face. The ceiling here was lonely about 48 inches in some places. They rode hunched over, their helmets scraping against the rock above. Elias felt the mountain pressing down on him.
Ow.
2 miles of rock. Millions of tons of pressure, held back by pillars of coal and the steel bolts he installed. When they reached the face, the active mining area, the noise began. It was a cacophony that defied description. The continuous miner, a massive machine with a rotating drum of tungsten carbide teeth, roared as it tore into the coal seam. Oh, shit. The scrubbers whined. The shuttle cars groaned as they hauled the cut coal to the belt. Elias's job was roof bolting. It is widely considered the most dangerous job in the mine. Once the coal is removed, the roof is unsupported. The bolter goes in first. Elias stood under the raw, exposed rock, operating the dual-boom Fletcher machine. He drilled holes 4 feet up into the strata, then inserted long steel rods with glue cartridges to bind the layers of rock together, creating a beam of strength. It was precision work done in a hurricane of noise and dust. For 4 hours, Elias worked in a trance. Drill, insert, spin, torque, move, drill, insert, spin, torque, move. The dust was everywhere. It coated his skin, filled his nose, settled in the corners of his eyes. He wore a mask, but the dust always found a way. He could feel it in his teeth, gritty and sharp. Around 10 a.m., the machinery shut down for a belt move. The silence that rushed in was sudden and ringing. Elias sat on a pile of timber cribs, uncorking his thermos. Billy came over and sat beside him, wiping sweat from his forehead, leaving streaks of black mud. "Man," Billy panted, "she's dusty today. Ventilation ain't pulling right." Elias looked at the brattice cloth, the heavy plastic curtain that directed the airflow. It was hanging limp. "You're right, air's dead. I'm going to check the intake." "Sit down, Deacon," Billy said, pulling a sandwich out of his pail. "Boss is already on it. You work too hard. You think the company's going to build you a statue?" Elias took a slow sip of water. "I don't work for the company, Billy. I work for Sarah, and I work for you, so you get home to that baby." Billy went quiet, humbled. He looked at his boots. "I know. I appreciate it." "Really?" Elias closed his eyes for a second. In the dark, he saw the kitchen table again, saw the past due stamp on the electric bill. He saw the look in Martha's eyes when she talked about her sister's vacation to Myrtle Beach, a vacation they hadn't taken in 10 years. He felt the weight of his own obsolescence. He was a man of the pick and the shovel in a world of microchips. What was he worth if he couldn't do this? "Hey, hear that?" Billy whispered. Elias opened his eyes. He cocked his head, listening past the ringing in his ears. Thump. A dull, heavy sound, like a sledgehammer hitting a pillow deep inside a wall. "That's a bump," Elias said, his voice low. Crack. The sound was sharper this time, louder. It came from the roof directly above the continuous miner. 50 feet away, roof's working, Elias said, standing up slowly. His instincts, honed over 30 years, were screaming. The hair on his arms stood up. The air pressure in the mine suddenly changed. His ears popped. "Get back," Elias said. "What?" Billy asked, mouth half full of bread. "Get back," Elias roared, grabbing Billy by the shoulder strap of his overalls and yanking him backward. The world dissolved. It wasn't like the movies. There was no fireball. There was no cinematic slow motion. It was just a sudden, violent erasure of space. The roof of the mine, a slab of sandstone, the size of a basketball court, delaminated and fell. The wind hit them first, the air displaced by the falling rock. It knocked Elias and Billy off their feet, throwing them into the rib of the coal. Then came the dust, a wall of particulate matter so dense it was solid. Then the noise of thunderclap that shattered the senses. Elias hit the ground hard, his helmet flying off. He rolled instinctively, curling into a ball, covering his head with his hands. Debris rained down on him, chunks of rock, slate, and coal. Something heavy struck his left leg, and he felt the bones snap with a sickening crunch. He screamed, but he couldn't hear himself. The noise was absolute. And then, just as quickly as it had begun, it stopped. The silence that followed was heavier than the rock. It was a suffocating, thick silence. Elias lay in the dark. His headlamp was gone. He blinked, but the blackness was unchanged. He was blind, tasted copper and dust. He tried to breathe, but the air was choked with pulverized rock. He coughed, a racking, painful spasm that tore at his already ruined lungs. "Billy," he croaked. Silence. Billy moaned to his left, maybe 10 feet away. "Deacon, I can't move." Elias fumbled at his belt. His hands were shaking violently. He found his backup light, a small flashlight clipped to his suspenders. He clicked it on. The beam cut through the swirling dust like a lightsaber. The scene was apocalyptic. The tunnel where they had been sitting was gone. In front of them was a wall of rubble, floor to ceiling. The way out was blocked. Behind them, the tunnel extended for maybe 30 feet before ending in another collapse. They were sealed in a pocket, a stone coffin. Elias dragged himself toward the sound of Billy's voice. His left leg dragged uselessly behind him, a chaotic flare of agony with every inch. He gritted his teeth, sweat stinging his eyes. He found Billy pinned against the rib. A piece of timber cribbing had fallen across the boy's chest, pinning him but not crushing him. Billy's face was a mask of blood and dust. His eyes were wide, rolling in panic. "My legs. Deacon. I can't feel my legs." "It's the shock, son. Stay still," Elias said, his voice surprisingly calm. This was the miner's code. You panic, you die. You stay calm, you might still die, but you die like a man. Elias checked the timber. It was wedged tight. If he moved it, the rest of the pile might shift and crush them both. "I can't move it, Billy. Not yet." Elias shined the light around their prison. It was about 10 feet wide, 4 feet high, and 30 feet long. He looked at his multi-gas detector. 19.5% oxygen. 1.2% methane. "Air's okay for now," Elias lied. The oxygen was dropping. The methane was rising. The ventilation was cut off. They were breathing dead air. "We're trapped, ain't we?" Billy whispered, tears cutting tracks through the soot on his cheeks. "I'm never gonna see the baby." "Shut up with that," Elias snapped, leaning back against the coal rib, clutching his broken leg. "But they know we're here. Holloway knows. The tracker system shows exactly where we are. Rescue team is probably suiting up right now." But Elias knew the truth. They were deep. The collapse was massive. It could take days to dig them out. They didn't have days. They had hours. Time underground loses its meaning. There's no sunrise, no sunset. There's only the battery indicator on your light and the rhythm of your own heartbeat. The first hour passed in relative silence. They conserved their breath. Elias used a strip of his shirt to bind his leg, pulling it tight until the world went white with pain, trying to stabilize the fracture. The second hour brought the thirst. The dust had sucked every drop of moisture from their mouths. The third hour brought the ghosts. As the carbon dioxide levels began to creep up, the mind began to play tricks. Elias sat in the dark to save his battery. In the blackness, the coal face seemed to shimmer. He started thinking about the first time he took Martha to the county fair. 1988. She was wearing a yellow sundress that looked like a daffodil in a field of gray. He had won her a stuffed bear at the ring toss. His hands were clean then. He had dreams of being an architect, of building things up instead of tearing them down. But then his dad got sick, and the mine was the only place paying a living wage. He traded the drafting table for the roof bolter, and he told himself it was temporary. Temporary turned into 30 years. Deacon. Billy's voice was slurred. You think it hurts to die? We ain't dying, Billy. My head hurts. I don't sleep. Elias shouted, reaching over and shaking Billy's boot. You sleep? You don't wake up. Talk to me. Tell me about the baby. What names you got picked out. If it's a boy, James after my pap. If it's a girl, Lily. A flower name. A flower name. My Sarah. She loves lilies. Elias felt a coughing fit coming. He tried to hold it back, but his lungs betrayed him. He hacked and wheezed, his chest heaving. It felt like someone had poured concrete into his bronchia. He spat, and in the beam of the flashlight he saw the bright red frothy blood. The black lung was claiming him, accelerating in the bad air. You okay? Billy asked weakly. Just dust, Elias wheezed. Just dust. Hour 6. The air was getting heavy, felt thick, hard to pull into the lungs. The methane detector was beeping intermittently now. 2.0%. Explosive range is 5%. For rock fell and sparked, ... Elias turned on the light again. The battery indicator was flashing red. He looked at Billy. The boy was fading. His eyes were half closed. Shh. Billy, listen to me, Elias said, dragging himself closer. You got a self-rescuer on your belt. You know how to use it? Yeah, ... Good. Don't pop it yet. Wait until you have to. It's chemical oxygen. It gets hot. It'll burn your mouth, but you breathe it. You hear me? I hear you. Elias leaned his head back against the coal. He was so tired. The pain in his leg had dulled to a throbbing numbness. He closed his eyes. He saw the kitchen table again. But this time, the ledger was gone. The bills were gone. It was just Sarah sitting there in her graduation gown. She was smiling. She held up a diploma. I did it, Dad. I'm free. Elias smiled in the dark. I need to tell you something, Billy, Elias whispered into the gloom. I got the lung. The doctors told me 6 months ago. Stage 3. Billy didn't answer. I didn't tell Martha. I wanted to get Sarah through school first. I wanted to pay off the house. I figured I had a few more years of fight in me. Tears leaked from Elias's eyes, mixing with the grit. I was wrong. The mountain always wins, Billy. She always collects. Suddenly a sound. Thump, thump. It wasn't the mountain. It was rhythmic. It was mechanical. Billy Elias slapped the boy's leg. Billy, listen. They held their breath. Thump, thump. It was coming from the roof. A drill. A rescue drill from the surface. Or maybe a probe from the other side of the fall. Elias grabbed a piece of slate and slammed it against a roof bolt. Clang, clang, clang. He waited. Thump, thump, thump. They heard us. They're here. Billy sobbed. God, they're here. But hearing them and reaching them were two different things. It took another 4 hours. 4 hours of agonizing waiting as the air grew thinner and thinner. Elias felt his consciousness slipping. He was floating. He was back on the porch, watching the sunset. He wasn't in pain anymore. Then, the breakthrough. A probe drill punched through the rubble pile with a hiss of escaping air. A fiber-optic camera snake followed. Then the shouting of men. Hold on, we're coming through. Laborers moved the rock by hand, bucket by bucket. It was slow, grueling work. When the hole was finally big enough, a light shined through bright, beautiful lead light. ICM, survivors. A rescuer crawled through the gap. It was Holloway, the foreman. His face was streaked with tears. Elias. Billy, got you. They took Billy first. He was lighter, easier to maneuver. Go, Elias waved them off. Get the kid. He's got a baby coming. We're coming back for you, Deacon, Holloway promised. Elias watched them drag Billy through the hole. He was alone again. For 10 minutes, he sat in the silence. He looked at his hands. The coal dust was embedded so deep it looked like his skin was made of the stuff. I gave it all, he thought. I gave my back, my lungs, my legs. I gave it for the lights on the porch. I gave it for the diploma on the wall. And they came back for him. The pain of moving his leg was so intense he blacked out. He woke up in the back of an ambulance. The sensation of movement was smooth, not the jarring rattle of the man-trip. He opened his eyes. An EMT was leaning over him, adjusting an IV. Welcome back, Mr. Thorne. Billy Elias rasped. He's in the rig behind us. He's fine. Dehydrated, scared, but fine. Elias turned his head. Through the back window of the ambulance, he could see the night sky. The moon was full, hanging over the silhouette of the ridge. It was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. The recovery was a long, slow season. The leg healed, but with a permanent limp. The lungs, the lungs didn't heal. The exposure to the bad air and the stress of the entrapment had accelerated the fibrosis. 6 months later, Leah sat on the front porch swing. The autumn leaves were turning fire red and pumpkin orange, setting the hills ablaze. The air was crisp. He wasn't wearing his mining boots. He was wearing slippers. Beside him sat a portable oxygen concentrator, rhythmic puffs of air traveling up a clear tube to his nose. The screen door opened. Sarah stepped out. She looked different, older, more confident. She was holding a letter. "Dad?" she said softly. "What is it, honey?" "I got the job. The teaching position. At the high school in Charleston." Elias felt a lump in his throat that had nothing to do with the coal dust. He reached out and took her hand. Her hand was soft, smooth, clean. "You did good, Sarah. You did good. I couldn't have done it without you, Dad. You did it yourself. I just cleared the way." A car pulled up the gravel driveway. A silver sedan. It was Billy. He got out, carrying a bundle in a car seat. He walked up the steps, looking sheepish. He wasn't wearing his mining stripes. He was wearing a polo shirt with a logo for a trucking company. "Hey, Deacon," Billy said. "Billy, you look clean." Billy laughed. "Yeah, Martha told me if I went back down that hole, she'd shoot me herself. Driving a delivery route now. It pays less, but... Well, the air is better. Billy set the car seat down on the porch. Inside, a baby girl was sleeping, wrapped in a pink blanket. "This is Lily," Billy said. Elias leaned forward, the oxygen tube adjusting with him. He looked at the baby. It was perfect, unblemished, brand new. "She's beautiful, Billy. I wanted you to meet her since ... You know, you're the reason she has a daddy." Elias waved a hand dismissively. "The mountain just wasn't ready for us yet." Billy stayed for an hour, drinking iced tea and talking about the future. When he left, the sun was beginning to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the valley. Martha came out and sat beside Elias. She didn't say anything. She just took his hand and rested her head on his shoulder. They watched the day end. In the distance, across the valley, the shift whistle at the Black Bear mine blew. It was a mournful, hollow sound that echoed off the canyon walls. Elias listened to it. For the first time in 37 years, he didn't have to get up. He didn't have to grab his pail. Didn't have to descend into the dark. Took a deep breath of the cool evening air, letting the machine help him, feeling the oxygen fill his scarred chest. The coal was still down there. It would always be down there. But Elias Thorne was up here. He was broken, he was battered, and he was breathless. But as he looked at his wife and thought of his daughter, and remembered the sleeping face of Billy's baby girl, he knew the truth. He had mined something far more valuable than coal. He had mined a life, and the cost. He looked at the mountain one last time, its silhouette dark against the purple sky. Fair trade, he thought.